Hey everyone, so today we will talk about Visual Studio Code, which is free, open source, and cross-platform, which means it is available on Windows, Mac, and Ubuntu. It enables you to work with almost any technology such as C++, C#, PHP, Python, etc. It is built on JavaScript using the famous framework called Electron.js. To download it, simply go to code.visualstudio.com and download it for your operating system and install it just like you install any other software. So when you visit your VS Code for the first time, it looks something like this, where you have a sidebar on the side and some buttons on the top. You can either create a new file or open a folder or even clone a repository from GitHub. You can see the list of all the projects that you open in your VS Code here. If you need some help regarding VS Code, you can check out these links. You can also check the documentation for things like customization, etc. On the sidebar, you have this Explorer tab where you can see the files and folders of the open project. The next option is for the search. So for example, if you want to search something in your project, you can do that here. The third option is for the source control. So for example, if you do not want to work with your version control CLI, you can use this GUI for maintaining your version control. The fourth tab here is for debugging. So for example, if you have your Node.js application that you want to debug, you can use this tab. And the last tab that you see here is for the extension. So for example, if you want to install any new extension, enable or disable any of them, you can do that here. Now let's continue by opening a folder in our project, which we can do that by going to the file and typing on open folder. Or another way to do that is to go to our terminal and open it from there using the command code space the folder name, and executing that command will open that project for us in our VS Code. So here on the sidebar, you can either create a new file. So let's say for example you want to create an index.html file, we can do that here. And even if you want, you can also create a new folder, and there you can name that folder. We can have nested files inside the folders, and we can also have folders at the top level. We can also collapse all our available folders and also refresh our project. To customize our VS Code, I have opened another project in our VS Code, and the reason for that is that when we will make changes, for example changing the theme or font, we will be able to see that in our VS Code. Now let's talk about the theme. So most probably you will not like the default theme just like me. And if that's the case, then let's try to change our theme. And to do that, you can open the command palette using Command Shift P or Control Shift P, and there you can type theme. And choosing preferences color theme will give you the list of all the available themes that you have by default in your VS Code. You can navigate in between those themes to see how they looks. And if you do not like any of this theme, you can also install another new theme. Now let's say you do not like any of the default theme. You can also install additional theme from extensions, and to do that you need to go to the extension tab and then search for category themes, and it will give you all the available extensions for the themes that are available in your VS Code. Now I have already installed this One Dark Pro theme, so I will just go ahead and enable this theme so that I can see it in the list of all the available themes. Now if I open again the command palette by using Ctrl Shift P and search for the themes, there you can see this. Now I have this one additional theme that is called One Dark Pro, and this is the theme that I have just enabled. So if you install any other theme from the extensions and you come back to this color theme, you will be able to see that here as well. So now the next thing that we can talk about is the fonts. So in Visual Studio Code, you can have any font that you have already installed in your operating system. Which means that if you want to install any other additional font in your Visual Studio Code, you first have to install that just like you install any normal font in your operating system. So in this video, I will go with the figure code, which you can find in the description of this video. Also, I have already installed the font, so I do not need to download it again and install it on my operating system. So I will just go ahead and enable that in my Visual Studio Code. So to enable that, I have to go to the settings using the command palette and search for the settings. And then there you can actually see the font family, which is the third option. But if you cannot find that for some reason, you can also search for that using the search option. And there you can actually add that font which you have just installed, which was already installed on your system. So in this case, I am going with the figure code. So I will just type that figure code in single quotes, and that will enable the figure code for my Visual Studio Code. Now in figure code or something like figure code, you will see that they also provide you some kind of additional, some different styling for the symbols. For example, double equals or equals and greater than, etc. So for these kind of symbols, you have to change one more setting in your VS Code settings. So to do that, open the command palette and go for the settings, and there you can search for font ligature. and then choose edit in settings.js and then change the value to true. So once you change that, that will enable all those kind of symbols, and you can then cross check that by typing something. If you pay attention on the right side of your code editor, you can see this minimized version of your code. This is called the minimap. So if you do not like this minimap, or if you want to disable it just because it takes some extra space, so in that case you can also do that by going to the view and disabling the show minimap option, and that will disable it for you. On the top of the editor, you can see the breadcrumb, which gives you the location of where your cursor is at the point. And you can also change that and navigate between function using the breadcrumb. If you also do not like this and want to disable that, you can also do that by going to the view and disabling show breadcrumb. The next thing we can change is the position of the sidebar. So at this point, it is on the left side of the sidebar. This is okay, but sometimes when you're coding and you open that, your code shift a little bit to the right side, giving some space to the sidebar, and this might distract you. So if you do not want this distraction, you can actually change the position of the sidebar from left to the right. And to do that, you have to go to the settings, search for the sidebar, and change its location from left to right. If you want, you can also change the title of your Visual Studio Code, and to do that, again, you have to go to the settings from the command palette, and there you can search for title. So now here you can see that it has a lot of predefined variables which has their definition mentioned as well. If you want, you can have anything in your title. So I will just go ahead and add some emojis and save that and see how it looks. And with that, our title has been updated successfully, and even if I close the settings tab and go to another tab, I can also see the updated changes. Alright, so now moving on to the navigation, we can actually search for any specific word within our file, and to do that we have to use Ctrl F, which is a shortcut key for the search, and there we can search for our word. If we want, we can also search for that specific word inside our whole project, and for that we have to do Ctrl Shift F or choose the second option from the sidebar, and there you will see the search in the whole project. And if you want, you can also replace these words by expanding the dropdown. Now let's say that you have a file which has 1,000 lines of code. So in that file, to navigate in between lines, what you can do is that you can use the line navigation. So for that you have to open the search palette by using Ctrl P and type colon and the line number. So for example, if I want to go to line number 70, I simply need to type that and that will take me to line number 70. Another productivity tip is that, for example, if you have a function that has a typo and you have used that function within your file multiple places, so in that case, you can actually fix that without fixing that typo every single place. And to do that, you have to just highlight that typo once and use Ctrl D, Command D, and that will select all that similar words for you. And then you can just change that once. So now I'm back to the project which we created initially in this video. Let's see how we can use the Git GUI instead of CLI. So if you open the third tab from the sidebar, there you can see that you have two options, which is publish to GitHub and initialize a repository. So publishing to a GitHub means to directly publish this to a GitHub, whereas if you want to use the command git init, so for that you can initialize the repository. So for that you can click on this initialize repository button. So now this gives you the list of all the files that was recently changed. So if you want to commit all those files, you just need to click on this check button, which is a commit button. And then you can add your commit message. So here in this case, I will go with the commit name, which is first commit. So I will just add first commit here and enter that. Now the changes has been successfully committed. Now if I want to cross check that, I can open my terminal and then go to that project or folder and then do git log, which will give me the list of all the recent commits. So now you can see here I have this first commit in the list, which means that commit was successfully added. Now if you want, you can also do much more than just a commit. So for example, if you want to add a remote repository, you can also do that here. And this will ask you to access your GitHub. So you need to give GitHub access to your Visual Studio Code. And it does that using GitHub tokens. So once Visual Studio Code has the access to your GitHub, then you can simply search for that repository that you want to add as a remote repository. So this is just like using git remote add command. So once you select a repository, next is to give it a name. So I will go with the origin. Now to confirm and make sure that the remote repository has been successfully added, we can again open our terminal and use git remote v, which will give us a list of all the remote repositories that are added to this project. And now you can see I have the repository that I just added as an origin. Other than that, you can also do things like pull, push, clone, etc. using the Visual Studio Code GUI for the source control. So from the starting of this video, I was using an external terminal, but in Visual Studio Code, you also have a built-in terminal which you can open with Ctrl J or Command J. And in this terminal, you can have multiple tabs using the plus icon, and then you can switch between those terminals. So by default, I have set my terminal to PowerShell, but if you want to change that, you can also change that to something else, for example, git bash or command prompt, etc. If you want, you can also split the terminal so that you can have multiple terminals in your view. You can have as many terminals as you want. And you can also remove that using the delete icon. One other important thing to keep in mind is that within this built-in Visual Studio Code terminal, whenever you open this terminal, it takes you to that project. So in this case, you can see that the path is desktop/VS Code, which is the path of the project. The next thing that we can talk about is shortcuts in Visual Studio Code. So you can open the list of all the shortcuts from the command palette by searching for the shortcuts. And here you can see the list of all the shortcuts that you have in your Visual Studio Code. So if you want, you can customize that by clicking on this icon and giving it the new command. Or if you are coming from some other IDE or code editor, for example Vim or Sublime, etc., so you can also import those shortcuts in your Visual Studio Code. So for that, you will need to have an extension. Now if you want to search for all the available key map extensions, you can just simply search for @recommended key maps, and here you can see the list of all the available key maps that you have in Visual Studio Code. So here you can just select the one you like and just simply install that.
Now the next thing that I want to talk about is the Emmet. So Visual Studio Code has a built-in Emmet that you can use for HTML files. So if you just type HTML, you can see the suggestions, and if you select the second options, you get the basic boilerplate for the HTML file. Now let's say if you're using Angular or React or Vue.js or something like that, for all these additional languages, frameworks and libraries, you have the extensions. So let's say you want to have a snippet for React.js, so you just simply need to go to the extension and search for React snippets. And here you can see the list of snippets extension that is available for React.js. So let's go with the first option. And here you can see this this extension provides us the basic snippets that is used for creating React.js files. So now let's test this out by creating a JavaScript file with the name index.js and type imp and press the tab button, and that gives us the import command. So just like that, we have a long list of available shortcuts. So with these shortcuts, you can improve your productivity. So that is it for now. I hope you liked the video and learned something new about Visual Studio Code. Give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And also let me know what you want to learn next.